agree or disagree that if evolution is true, then it would mean that all life on the planet is related?
If the theory of evolution were true, then assuming that organisms are related still doesn't give you the process of speciation as some sort of mechanistic causal.
That's fine. That's not required to know that organisms are related or to be able to test whether or not they are related. But it's very clearly an implication of evolutionary theory that all organisms on this planet would be related.
If you're just saying all life has similar chemistry observably, and all life is bound to similar laws of physics and chemistry,
that's nowhere close to where I'm going with this.
Well, I'm saying relatedness. I'm just saying.
I'm talking about genetics. I'm talking about Darwin proposed that there must be a hereditary molecule, and that would be passed down from organism to organism. And that is what is responsible for the traits that organisms have. And the modification of that genetic molecule is what would cause variations in populations. And so it would change over time. Then he had ideas about what it could be. He called them gemmucules or something like that. We know he was wrong, but we now know about genetics. And so anyways, go ahead.
So I'm just I'm going to ask you, when you talk about similar, you're talking about when you say related, you're talking about similar genetic structure, right? Physical?
Yep.
Okay. So
does all life on the planet have that?
If you assumed that we're related because we all have similar material in us, how would you determine that we're not related, but we had similar material in us?
Again, you're not the one doing the cross-examination right now.
Well, your question assumes this, though.
That's how science works. Science is predicated on we take assumptions and then we go and test them. So the way you stated that earlier was you kind of got it backwards. We actually didn't know how to test genetic similarities scientifically. I mean, we knew how to do it statistically within a species. Gregor Mendel unveiled that for us, but we didn't know how to really deep down scientifically test the relatedness between organisms. We could see how closely related you and I are, or we could see, is there a relationship between species? Now we do know how to do that. It was predicted. So evolution could have failed the prediction that all life on this planet would be related. And in addition to that, it predicted certain degrees of relatedness between organisms. We should be most closely related to the great apes, and then we should be more closely related to all mammals in general than to any other kind of life on this planet. Literally all of those tests have passed. So how do you reconcile the data that confirmed what evolutionary scientists thought would happen?
Well, I would reconcile it by calling it confirmation bias, because the question I just asked shows that it is. How would you determine any organism wasn't related to another organism?
If they shared 0 genes, so that would be how it would work. But
is everything related?
That's not the case.
Is everything related?
You're going to have to save that for your time. I only have 7 minutes left here.
Well, what I'm saying is that the assumption here is that everything's related because of similar structure, and everything has carbon.
The assumption was that everything is related. That was the original claim, and then we figured out scientifically how you test that, and it confirmed it. And now you're sitting here saying, "Oh, just because they share genes, that means they're related." That was how we confirmed the idea. And now you're saying, "Well, no, it's not."
Yeah, it is. I'll give you it. Premise one.
It's not.
Premise one.
Jimbob, stop. You can do this when it's your turn.
I'm not cross-examining. I'm correcting you.
Yes, but during a cross-examination, I get to decide how my time is used.
Premise one, if you started with the assumption that everything is ancestral, and you started with that assumption, and you found a fossil, in this case Tiktaalik, how could it not be a transitional fossil if you started with the assumption that everything's in transition? There's no such thing as a non-transitional fossil, which is question begging.
No, because the transitional fossils have predictable characteristics from them. We should also expect to not be able to find the organisms of the present in the past. And indeed, we don't. So anyways, how is that anything other than so evolution said we should find this thing, and then it did find this thing. What is your response to that?
That's starting with a narrative and finding evidence to support your premise one. It tells us nothing about whether or not evolution is a scientific theory.
This would apply for literally everything. Oh, you think the nucleus exists? Well, then the gold foil experiment that confirmed that's just confirmation bias.
We already explained this, and I completely, thoroughly made this distinction, is that what exists has nothing to do with, ultimately, what causes X. I already told you, we agreed that looking at a bubbling thing or a fossil, if we agree that's a fossil, if we agree what things are, we're asking a different question in evolution. We're asking a question about the observation that we see diversity in life. We're asking a question, what causes diversity in life? That's the question, again, right? That has to run through the scientific method. Finding a fossil doesn't tell you.
This is a complete red herring. Yes, because we could apply it to anything that's scientific that you believe in. For example, do you think protons and neutrons exist?
I'm not sure. I didn't observe them directly.
I'll just conclude by laying out why what he's been doing here is a complete red herring. Protons and neutrons exist. Virtually nobody has a problem accepting that the scientific body of knowledge tells us that they exist. Nobody has a problem just saying that that is true. We could call it a fact. Now, but an observation that protons and neutrons exist, the experiments like the gold foil experiment that confirms it, well, that doesn't tell you why a proton is positively charged and a neutron is neutrally charged. That tells you nothing about the combination of up and down quarks inside them that gives us its charge. You don't need to know that in order to be able to claim and declare and do science that supports that there are positively charged and neutral subatomic particles. So that is the end of my time.